Chief Executive John Lee leads LegCo members and officials to tour Greater Bay Area. DSE exams start for thousands of students. Hello and happy Friday. Chief Executive John Lee is leading a large delegation of lawmakers and government officials to tour 4 cities in the Greater Bay Area. Lee said he hopes the 4-day trip will help improve the city's governance with a better collaboration and mutual monitoring between the executive and legislative branches. Jackie Lin was at the send-off.
宣布政府及立法會大灣區訪問團出發。
Led by Chief Executive John Lee, the Greater Bay Area tour marks the first trip jointly participated by 83 lawmakers and 5 principal officials of this term, including Chief Secretary for Administration Eric Chan. It's also the administration's largest official trip since the border reopened with the mainland.
今次嘅訪問團呢
Before setting off, the CE said the tour shows how the legislature is of one heart and one mind under the principles of patriots ruling Hong Kong and an executive-led governance. The administration also said the trip will hopefully allow Hong Kong and other cities in the Greater Bay Area to join forces in promoting the high-quality development of the region and help the city better integrate into the overall development of the country. The delegation will first stop by Shenzhen before splitting into 2 groups to visit Dongguan and Foshan respectively. They will then conclude the trip together in Guangzhou. The itinerary includes visits to local facilities and enterprises in the fields of innovation, environmental protection, youth development, as well as arts and culture. Lawmakers expressed wishes over the possibilities in advancing various policies during the trip, including streamlining the border crossing arrangements.
A good exchange make everything, and I think this is a very important starting point because I understand that the administration has been working very hard with different leaders in various cities, but Legislative Council also play a role. I believe we will have further discussion after this tour.
It has been a number of years that the LegCo members having the opportunity to visit the mainland China, and this time is particularly different because we have the government officials together, particularly with the chief executive.
6 legislators couldn't join the tour. They include Teck Chi-yun, the chamber's only lawmaker who's not of the pro-establishment camp. He said he's now in the UK preparing for a marathon. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The chief executive-led LegCo government tour group arrived in Shenzhen at around 6 p.m. Settling down first at the Wuzhou guest house, Chief Executive John Lee was received by Shenzhen Mayor Qin Weizhong. The Shenzhen municipal government will hold a banquet tonight for the lawmakers and government officials from Hong Kong. Hong Kong's main university entrance exam, the Hong Kong Diploma of Secondary Education Examination, also known as the HKDSE, held its first day of written exams today. Students were not required to provide negative RAT results, but had to wear a mask when taking the English language exam this morning. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Despite the dropping of most anti-COVID restrictions, certain measures against the pandemic remain in effect for candidates of the HKDSE exam. The Examinations and Assessment Authority mandated that all candidates have their temperatures tested, provide health declaration forms, and wear a mask throughout the duration of the examination. This student said the mask does not affect her performance, and that she was used to wearing it during previous tests. A secondary school principal said this year's COVID-related restrictions have significantly eased, adding that only a small number of students did not fill in their declaration forms prior to arriving at the exam site. As for infected candidates, they could take the DSE exam at the Cognitio College's former campus in Sampok Kong. They had to register with the Examinations and Assessment Authority earlier via phone or email. Some candidates said they were hopeful about achieving their desired exam results.
In the morning, I didn't feel that worried about the whole DSE exam because I think that the attitude, the attitude and my mental strength is the most important thing for the DSE.
I thought most of it was pretty good. English is kind of my strong suit in terms of the language subjects. People were definitely more tense than usual compared to their normal tests at school. Considering this is the DSE, so I think that's really normal. There weren't a lot of guys like having lots of, I guess, emotions during that time. Everyone's really serious.
But others were less optimistic.
So I woke up this morning at 2 a.m. and tried to study for English. It was a hard journey towards 2 to 6 a.m. Constantly studying. I knew that I wasn't able to achieve such a high standard in such a short period of time, so I tried to plan schedule for different subjects.
English language takes the spot for the most popular subject in this year's DSE exam, selected by more than 47,000 candidates. Continuing with the English subject tomorrow, students will take the English listening and integrated skills exam tomorrow morning. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Foreign Minister Qin Gang is embarking on a 3-day official visit to the Philippines starting today, where he will hold talks with the Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Earlier today, Qin attended the Lanting Forum in Shanghai, where he explained and defended China's position in response to criticism from some Western countries. Daniel Rell tells us more.
This morning, Foreign Minister Qin Gang made the keynote speech at the opening of the Lanting Forum on Chinese modernization and the world in Shanghai. Qin said pursuing modernization is an inalienable right of every country. He said some countries shouldn't tear down the bridge after reaching the shore of modernization. He added some advanced countries have constantly set up barriers for others to pursue their distinctive modernization paths. The foreign minister said the accusation of China challenging the international rule and unilaterally changing the status quo in the Taiwan Strait is absurd and dangerous. He said it is not Beijing but Taiwan's pro-independence forces and their external supporters that are disrupting the peace and stability of the region. Qin said that both sides of the Taiwan Strait belong to China and that it is right and proper for China to uphold its sovereignty. He also commented on the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Qin said China is not inflaming the situation in Ukraine and advocates a peaceful resolution of international disputes through dialogue and diplomacy. Qin's comments come ahead of his official visit to the Philippines between April 21st to 23rd. Qin's trip will be his first official engagement with the Philippines since he was appointed foreign minister and state councillor in December, at a time when China expressed concern over the Philippines expanding U.S. military access to its bases. He will meet with Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Philippine Foreign Minister Enrique Manalo. Among the topics to be discussed are the implementation of agreements made during Marcos Jr.'s state visit to China in January, regional security issues, and the outcome of last month's bilateral talks on the South China Sea. Marcos Jr. will then head to Washington for talks at the White House with U.S. President Joe Biden on May 1st, when they are expected to discuss economic and defense cooperation. Daniel Rell, TVB News.
About 90 Japanese lawmakers on Friday visited a Tokyo shrine viewed by Chinese and Koreans as a symbol of Japanese wartime aggression. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida donated masakaki religious ornaments to mark Yasukuni Shrine Spring Festival, but he did not personally visit the shrine. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said that China firmly opposes Japan's inappropriate conduct in regards to the Yasukuni Shrine and has lodged representations with the Japanese side. Asian neighbors have been outraged in the past by Japanese politicians visiting the shrine in downtown Tokyo as it honors 14 Japanese leaders convicted by Allied Tribunal as war criminals, along with the other war dead. Coming up after the break, cities' prices went up in March by 1.7%. Britain's Deputy Prime Minister resigns over bullying controversy. Key charge against Alec Baldwin is dropped over fatal shooting incident. Welcome back. Prices in Hong Kong in March went up 1.7% year-on-year. The government predicted that the pressure of inflation will continue to increase, but will stabilize for the short term. The rate of increase for consumer prices in March decelerated when compared with the previous 2 months by 0.4 percentage points. Authorities said the inflation slowdown was due to a decrease in prices of basic food. The highest year-on-year increases in prices include gas and water at 19.9%, alcoholic drinks and tobacco at 18.7%, and clothing and footwear at 6.3%. Meanwhile, prices for basic food, along with durable goods, witnessed a year-on-year decrease of 2.8%, with housing at negative 0.2%. Some scholars believe that energy prices will continue to rise as demand for alternative forms of energy, such as natural gas, is growing in the city. There has been a rise in seasonal influenza cases in Hong Kong, with an increase in both serious cases and the death rate. An infectious disease expert said the rise in flu cases is related to people not being vaccinated. Mimo Singai reports.
Though Hong Kong has more or less bid farewell to the COVID pandemic, it has now entered the seasonal influenza period. According to the government, the city is at the peak of the flu season. The majority of patients are young children aged between 0 and 5, followed by people aged 65 or above. Between early April and Wednesday, 103 serious flu cases were reported and 49 patients died among them. Most death cases had chronic illnesses, while 14 of the deceased had received flu vaccinations.
Dr.
Kwok Siu Kai, Deputy Head of the Department of Family Medicine and Primary Care of Queen Mary Hospital, said people should still receive vaccinations as they provide some level of protection. Though the latest positive detections of flu viruses percentage is 15.81, lower than the peak figures of 2019 and 2020, infectious disease specialist Dr. Wilson Lam said the current percentage could be the highest in a few years. Lam said the community has a weak immune barrier for flu, contributing to the rising cases of infections. Nonetheless, Lam said the flu generally gives patients mild symptoms only, but they should seek medical treatment immediately if they suffer prolonged fever and chest pain. Mimo Singai, TVB News.
After much of Hong Kong Island experienced a large-scale power outage on Wednesday, the government said it is dissatisfied with the performance of electricity provider Hong Kong Electric. It also questioned why the company received $5 million worth of compensation for its failure. According to the Scheme of Control Agreements contract between the government and the city's electricity suppliers, if the former can restore electricity within 70 minutes of a power failure, they can receive 0.015% of their profit as a reward. Secretary for Environment and Ecology Tse Chin Wan stressed that authorities will review the current compensation policy and suggested that the money should be distributed to residents. On the last day of the Hong Kong Catholic Diocese delegation's visit to Beijing, Bishop Stephen Chow said Catholics should love their country and the church. Chow added he had invited his Beijing counterparts to visit Hong Kong. This morning, Chow attended Mass at Wang Fujing Church alongside Auxiliary Bishop Joseph Ha and Reverend Peter Choi. After the Mass, Chow talked to some parishioners and sent his blessings. The bishop then went to a cafe to have breakfast with his Beijing counterparts. To conclude his trip, Chow said there will be more exchanges between the two dioceses in future, which he described as a positive thing to do. Overseas, British Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Minister Dominic Raab has resigned. This following an independent investigation into formal complaints of bullying. The report by an independent employment lawyer investigated 8 formal complaints that Rob had been abusive towards staff during a previous stint as Justice Minister and while serving as Foreign Secretary and Brexit Secretary. In a letter to Prime Minister Rishi Sunak published on Twitter, Rob said, "In setting the threshold for bullying so low, this inquiry has set a dangerous precedent." He stated it will encourage spurious complaints against ministers, but Rob said he would remain supportive of the government. In New Mexico, in the U.S., prosecutors said they will dismiss an involuntary manslaughter charge against actor Alec Baldwin in the fatal shooting of a cinematographer in 2021. The shooting took place on the set of a Western movie being filmed at the time, but prosecutors cautioned that their investigation is not over and the actor has not yet been absolved. Tracy Furness has more.
Lawyers for Baldwin were first to announce that prosecutors were changing course in a sharp turnaround for the Hollywood star facing the possibility of a long prison sentence. The decision came after new evidence surfaced on the gun Baldwin was using that fired the live round that killed cinematographer Halyna Hutchins during the filming of the Western movie Rust in 2021. Baldwin, 65, was charged in January with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter in connection with Hutchins' death and the injury of Rust director Joel Souza. The movie's weapon handler, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, was also charged with involuntary manslaughter, but her prosecution will continue. The veteran actor denied responsibility for the shooting. He said he cocked the revolver but never pulled the trigger, and it was the job of the armourer, Gutierrez-Reed, and other weapons professionals to ensure it was unloaded. New evidence shows that the reproduction-long Colt 45 Peacemaker revolver had been modified, which has compromised the argument that the gun was fully functioning and could only have fired if Baldwin pulled the trigger. Investigators have not been able to explain how live rounds made it onto the film set. The dramatic turn in this case arrived on the same day that Baldwin and other cast members resumed filming the movie in Montana. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
The U.S. House of Representatives passed a Republican bill intended to ban transgender women and girls from competing in women's and girls' school sports. The House passed the measure by 219 to 203, but it has little chance of passing the Democratic-controlled Senate. U.S. President Joe Biden has also voiced his opposition to the bill and has vowed to veto it if needed. BMW has been forced to apologize after it was accused of discrimination at the Shanghai Auto Show. The car giant was giving out free ice creams at its mini stall to encourage people to view the vehicle. BMW employees appeared to offer freebies to foreigners while ignoring Chinese. The German manufacturer was heavily criticized in videos on social media and were trending in a PR disaster. The company admitted the error, putting it down to poor internal management. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.